Okay, so we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk today about. Um, we're just gonna start going through the principles, and some of these have videos. So this one, safety first. The recovery is the journey towards safety in all realms of life, including the biological, social, psychological, and the spiritual. There's a video already on safety. I will encourage you all to watch. I think that we'll link it to this one, but I'm going to talk a little bit about safety. So, what we mean by safety. So, safety. The whole problem of why we hurt so much has to do with non-safety. So we all grew up. We were all young once, babies. I'm going to talk in a bit of Punjabi too. We all grew up once. And at some point, we depended on others for our safety. And, I remember I used to do some team building, and this was like 20 years ago. I did an exercise. There was three of us. We were paired in three of those team building exercise. And so two people would stand behind a person, and then the third person would be asked to just kind of fall back. And the two people would catch the person. And most people really had a hard time with that. Just trusting that someone is going to catch you when you fall, it is a very, very hard thing to do. If growing up, people didn't have your back. And when you fell, no one picked you up, or you got blamed for it. So safety is at the core of when it's not there, it leads to chronic traumatization. So traumatization is when we can't let something go, we can't forget. That thing happened 20 years ago, it still hurts me. That is traumatization. That's what that is. Lots of people are traumatized. I was just talking to my team the other day. As a system, immigration traumatizes people. Why? Why does immigration traumatize people? Because you actually need three things. You need three things in order for traumatization to occur. That is, wo cheez hogi, main bhul nahi sakta. That thing happened, I can't forget it. It still bothers me today. You need three things to happen for the memory structure to store things in that way. You need, number one, you need something bad happening. So, I'll just say bad thing Really, I just mean negative things. There are no bad things in life. There's things that we perceive as negative. It's a lot of it is in our perception. For example, an alcoholic person who's not in recovery, is very unhealthy, will see the alcoholism as a bad thing. But a person in recovery who's doing really well, who's discovering parts of their life that never existed before, they might say, and they do say, I'm so glad I'm an alcoholic. It gave me the opportunity to heal. So bad thing is in quotation. So you need something negative to happen. Something you don't like happens. But that's not enough. Life is full of that. We forget most of it. You need two other things. The second thing you need is the feeling helpless. मतलब मैं आप कुछ कर नहीं सकता. No control. Out of control. This is crucial. Also known as helplessness. So what this is this is that idea, when I fall back and I think those people are going to catch me, there's a moment there where I am helpless. I don't know, I'm falling. I'm out of control. I know I'm going to injure myself badly. If I fall, I'm going to injure myself. That's out of control. No control, feeling helpless or powerless. Another way to say that is inadequate internal resources. So inadequate internal resources is more of a psychological term, but I encourage you to use this. Begin to describe your life using objective terms. Don't use terms like good and bad. Those terms are judgmental. Use terms that are very descriptive. Inadequate, not enough internal, inside you, resources, things that make you feel strong. An example of an internal resource is a daily practice. If you don't have much of a daily practice, you don't connect much with yourself, then when a bad thing happens, you will feel out of control. You will feel helpless. But even that's not enough for traumatization to happen. You need a third thing. 2 of the 3 does not work. You'll forget it. You need 1/3 thing to permanently store this memory in your survival circuitry. And that is simply no help. No outside help. Or not enough. No or not enough outside help. So bad thing happens, negative thing happens, it overwhelms you, you can't handle it, can't understand it, feel like, Rab tanu kuch karda hai to tusi kuch kar nahi sakte, you're really in a bad state. But even that's not enough. You then, if you don't get enough support in that moment, then that moment will forever be stored in your mind. O fir ladi var yaad rahooga tanu. O 1 minute. And what that means is we need all three of these things, and if all three of these things is met for us or for anyone around us, that time will be stored in a negative way in the brain. It will be stored in the survival circuitry.
So all three of that will be
Yeah. The event.
event.
If these three are met, this negative thing will become stored in your survival circuitry. So I'll give an example of what we mean by this. So when I was 5 years old, I touch a hot plate. मैं कोई गर्म चीज ਨੂੰ touch ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ. I burned myself. Very hot. No one was there to help me, and it was very painful. I got a burn now. I'm 5 years old. That thing happened. It overwhelmed me. And I didn't get enough support. And so then this memory, the brain thinks this can't happen again. दिमाग कहता है एक कदे नहीं दोबारा हो सकता. That's what the brain says. This cannot happen again. So instead of storing it with all the other memories, long-term memories that are not relevant to survival, the brain makes this a never again memory. Never again memories get stored in a different place. These memories are pointed to, they're connected to the amygdala. They activate the amygdala. And this is how it works. This is how it helps. This is a good thing. This good thing. Because for 30 years, I never got burned again. 30 saal bas to main jama nahi kade burn hoya. Because every time I go close to this hot plate, I'm careful. Why am I careful? Because my amygdala is activated. Why is it activated? It's because these three things happened. It got stored in the survival circuitry. It's good. And for 30 years, I never got burnt again until we ordered a hot plate that didn't show any signs of heat. It didn't say it was on, and it was black. And so a few months ago, I pressed my hand into this thing that I thought was off, and I burned it again. So that memory kept me good for 30 years. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. And now, after this thing happened, now I've learned that even surfaces that don't look hot, I'm careful. Interesting thing, these memories are not just stored in the conscious space, they're stored in the body. I feel heat on my hand, I think of that hot plate. थोड़ी गर्म चीज हाथ नू पता लग जांदा, I remember the hot plate. So traumatization isn't a bad thing. It's meant to be for the survival. It is meant to happen just once in a while. I don't go burning my hand every day. That's That's not what it's meant for. But that's how the brain is designed. So let's bring it into recovery or into the disease process. So bad thing happens. Well, if your parents are too busy to look after you because they drink or they have a mental health problem, ਜਿਵੇਂ parents ਉਹ ਸ਼ਰਾਬੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ there's a bad thing, ਉਹ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ, they don't understand you, they don't seem to take the time. So what that happens, a lot of bad things are felt. Falling off a bicycle, cycle to digna, bachche vaste, it's not a bad thing, it's a good learning lesson. But it becomes something that's traumatizing when they don't get enough help. Because a child always feels out of control. They are out of control. They don't have enough inside resource. Their brain is not developed. Je dimag nahi developed, how can he handle it? So a child will always feel this. And that's why parenting is so important. Because when they, every day, many times a day, they're going to feel out of control and helpless. They're going to need help. If they get the help, this whole thing doesn't happen. It becomes a good memory. There's a great movie, Inside Out. I encourage all of you to watch it. It's a Disney movie. You know, the thing that was traumatizing also becomes a thing that's healing, because trauma is not bad. Trauma is necessary for us to learn. But it becomes a problem when there is chronic non-safety. So when there is chronic non-safety, that means not enough outside help, not enough inside help. And what that means is we, as soon as these conditions are met, we start storing things in a different way. A lot of people come to Nam. They're in a state of crisis, always out of control, always bad things happening, always no support. So every day, minute after minute, they're loading their brain with more trauma, more trauma, more trauma. Forget the old stuff, making new trauma for themselves and others. If you live with people, it's the same thing. You can do this to someone else. If you're in recovery and you've had kids, chances are you've probably traumatized someone in your life. That's just reality. That's their journey. Because this is a neurological thing. It's not judgment. I'm not judging any of you. Life is complicated. We all play a role in each other's life. And if we're not supporting each other or supporting those that we love in hard times, they're gaining these memories too that are stored in the survival circuitry. Like, for example, when I was doing the team building, I fell. I was worried no one would catch me. Why? Because that probably happened as a kid. That's a journey for everyone. But you don't have to keep doing it. It's enough that it's happened how it's happened. You don't need to make it worse. But you will make it worse by not being aware of how traumatization happens. And this is why in recovery, not just Nam, I'll say this and I'll say it as many times, don't believe a word I say. Not one word. Test the koi cheez nahi believe karni meri. test karni hai. Je sahi hai, then 2-3 places, you check it, it's probably right. I call that the triangulation principle. You hear something one place, check it against a couple of other places. If they're all saying the same thing, it's probably more likely to be right. So, don't believe a word I say, test it. Think about it. And once you do, you'll realize safety is the key. Because why at NAM we stress self-therapy is really, people aren't in your control. Other people are not in your control. Your parents aren't in your control, your children aren't. Kaise ho taadi control ch nahi hega? Your wife's not, your husband's not. You may think they are, but they're not. They're independent. So, you may not always have a lot of outside support. But internal support, if you build enough inside support, like you have a good meditation practice, you pray. You know, so much of healing is about perspective. I no longer, when someone says something bad to me, I just think about it as like the universe, God, something is speaking through that person to send me a message. I make it impersonal. It's not personal. Trauma is not personal. You all need to understand this. Trauma is like the bad weather. Bad weather, hey, the grass likes bad weather. It helps it grow. It's a matter of perspective. You may not like it, but someone else might like it. If you think of trauma, adversity, ਜਦੋਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਔਖੀਆਂ, if you think of it as an opportunity to grow, you're not going to feel helpless. You're going to feel powerful. If you have a practice, you will, a daily practice, you will have a large capacity to process things. So this won't happen. The other part of self-therapy is connect to others. ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ connect ਕਰਨਾ. Regularly, ਜਿਹੜੇ healthy recovery ਵਿੱਚ. Connecting with others in healthy recovery, well then you get support. This is AA. Or a support group. Or your family, if they're safe. A lot of times people try to find this in early recovery from family, and it don't work. Because family is part of the traumatization complex. Oftentimes family is later in joining the network, not early. I've met many people who, their recovery takes much longer, because they keep going back to their kids, and their kids remind them of all the things they've done, and they trigger them. Trigger the amygdala, and then in early recovery, all they know is alcohol, or gambling, or anger, etc. Right? So the thing is that in early recovery, we have to look at what our triggers are. When our triggers are there, it's not safe. If it's not safe, you can't heal. You need safety to heal. And over time, your safety will grow. And I'll give you an example of this. I've been attacked a few times now by patients, mostly in the hospital. So, you know, crazy lady or crazy guy kind of just like threatens me, attacks me or something. And both times it wasn't a serious injury. No injury actually. But it wasn't a good situation, and I felt powerless, out of control. I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like that feeling. And doctors are taught you don't need anyone's help. So then you don't ask for help, so you just chronically feel unsupported. So what did I do? I went and got some martial arts training from Sensei, who comes here on Fridays. And you know what? I got a skill. I learned that if I have my hands up like this is a very safe posture. You can protect yourself and you can also strike. And you can also say, hey buddy, it's okay, we don't need to get upset here. If anyone's doing this to you, they can do a lot of damage, so be cautious if they're like this. So then a guy came up to me and he was getting very aggressive, and I said, initially I went to I was out of control a little bit, and I realized, no, I know how to take this guy down. I calmed down, and I said, Joey, or Jim, or whatever his name was. He had dementia. And I just said, hey, it's okay. Let's go to your room. And he went to the room. There was no conflict. There was no problem. Because I had addressed my traumatization by increasing my safety, by getting the martial arts training so that I felt safe. And in turn, before, what I might have done is I might have called security. I might have preemptively tried to push him away. He falls down, breaks a hip, out of fear. But none of those things happened because my safety became his safety. And so, safety, safe feel karna, is most important, emotionally, physically, in every way. It's important to feel safe. Because then you can grow. A plant, it comes up, look at how fragile a little seedling is. Little wind, little too much rain, it just will die. It needs protection. In recovery, you have to protect yourself in these early stages, otherwise you won't come out. For a lot of men, there's this like tough guy. You gotta drop that. Only way you're gonna drop that is by changing your environment. You know, a lot of things that we get a lot of pushback at in treatment programs is limiting the contact with family, but that's why. It's because as long as we're in constant contact with the family that's traumatizing and triggering us, we won't let the safety down. So you won't do good in groups. You won't say what your heart thinks because you've been hurt doing that. Your mom or dad said, be a man. Don't be a wussy. Stuff like that. And so that's deep programming. So you need safety to start to rewire that. In the other video, I talk about a butterfly in a cocoon. So please watch that video. There's lots to talk about safety, but safety has to be in every realm of your life. And as you get healthier, you will find that you feel safer anywhere. I never used to feel safe in a back alley with no lights, but now I feel safe there. I feel safe in homeless shelters. But didn't used to. Safety grows with recovery. All you have to do is connect to self, connect to other, commit to daily practice. That's it. And your safety will grow. You'll have to draw the boundaries where you need to protect your safety. This is an organic process. That's why we say connect to others. It's because a lot of times we don't know what to do. But if you connect to others, they will show you the path. So that's today's thing on safety. And so I'm just going to pause.